So since some of the videos I've made about my commander stuff has been doing decent on social media, I thought I would quickly do a breakdown of one of the ones that people were looking at and enjoying, but also wanting to know a little bit more about. It is a Fynn the Fangbearer deck. It's going to go over the important bits of the deck. I'm not going to go over every card, but I will talk about some of the key cards and important cards in this deck, some of the combo pieces, and why this deck is so mean. So before we go any farther, I'll talk a little bit about Fynn and what Fynn does. Sorry, I keep looking over here. It's just a natural habit. Not used to this yet. I'm getting there. Basically, whenever a creature with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. So anytime you have a creature with Death Touch, or you can apply Death Touch to a creature you have, if it is able to connect to a player in any way to deal any damage, they will get 2 poison counters for each creature with Death Touch that hits them. So this is a deck that can very quickly get out of control depending on the amount of combat damage you're able to sneak in. Some people go a bunch more small creatures, lower mana cost creatures, so you can just flood the board with smaller ones and attack and send them out at different people and just poison counters and then proliferate. Some people do a little hybrid where there's a mixture of both small mana cost and high mana cost creatures, and then some people go for the big swingers, where I feel like I'm more the hybrid. And I guess I'll show you some of the important cards that are in this deck now. Okay, so I've gone through and I've separated out the cards that I felt like have strong importance to this deck. It could be anything with the Death Touch keyword on it is what you're putting in here, realistically would still work with this deck. I just had certain reasons for picking certain cards, and then the other ones can be whatever. They don't have to be what I have, but the ones that I'm showing you here are the ones that I find important. So I'm going to start with the combo pieces, the pieces that are the most important to the deck if you just want to win with a combo. We have Ivy-Laden Denizen, Scurry Oak, Herd Baloth. So these work in different ways. These are each 2 card combos, both relying on Ivy-Laden Denizen to proc. Ivy-Laden Denizen states, first of all, Ivy-Laden Denizen is a 4 mana, 2/3 creature. It says whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So what this basically is allowing me to do is cycle something with Scurry Oak, where Scurry Oak is a 3 mana, 1/2 creature that has Evolve. Evolve states whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature has greater power or toughness than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Scurry Oak, you may create a 1/1 green squirrel token. So basically what can happen is I have Ivy-Laden Denizen out. I could play Scurry Oak. Scurry Oak procs Ivy-Laden Denizen because it's a green creature. Whenever this enters, I then can take the Ivy-Laden Denizen, put the +1 on Scurry Oak. Scurry Oak reads the +1, makes a 1/1 green squirrel token, triggering Ivy-Laden Denizen. Repeat the process. Infinite squirrels, infinite +1s for Scurry Oak. So on and so forth. And then if you were to change the subject, if you were to go with Ivy-Laden Denizen and Herd Baloth, you're going to run into a 5 mana 4/4 that says whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on the Herd Baloth, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. Same instance here. You play Ivy-Laden Denizen first, Herd Baloth comes out, it's going to trigger Ivy-Laden. Ivy-Laden puts a +1, makes a 4/4 green beast. It's going to trigger Ivy-Laden, repeat, and you have infinite 4/4 beast tokens, and as well as an infinitely large Herd Baloth, which does not have trample, but obviously there's ways to give things trample, which I will get to. But these are the combo piece cards. These are the cards that if you're able to tutor, if you have one of them and if you have one of these cards in hand and you have a tutor, you would tutor for the other, and that's pretty much a guaranteed win. Let's get to some of the fun stuff, some of the cool non-game ender creatures, not big swing, not swinging to end the game creatures, but these are creatures that have value and importance to this deck. Orin Frostfang, great creature, expensive, but it's a 2/6 for 5 mana. It says attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. You get a card draw. It gives everything that you have attacking Death Touch. So if you don't have a Death Toucher out, this can make anything you attack with a Death Toucher. Feeds directly into what Fynn wants to do. Great card. We have Ouroboros, 4 mana, 1/3 at the beginning of each 4 mana 1/3 creature. At the beginning of each combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is this creature's power. again, it just like you start exponentially growing everything on your board state, giving everything +1/+1s, making it huge, and almost guaranteeing that people either are going to have to block or you're going to kill them with damage directly or with poison counters. So it's just feeding into making yourself a lot more of a menace, making your board state a lot more threatening. If you don't have as many creatures on board, you can still make some weaker creatures large with Aura Board being out on the board. Another creature that I feel like is kind of slept on, but it's one of my favorites, is Ovia. I have this in my Bristly build deck, and I also am having it in this deck, obviously. Ovia is a 4-mana 1/2 creature, legendary creature, and she says each creature that's attacking one of my opponents has trample, which is good. I mean, it's basically goad without the keyword. It just entices people to go after each other rather than me. But for 1 green and tapping her, I can put a creature or vehicle card from my hand onto the battlefield. If I were to put an artifact onto the battlefield this way, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Now, the artifact portion of this card doesn't really matter. There's one instance where that would matter for me, really, and that's with one of the game ender creatures, which is Blightsteel Colossus, which is in this deck. I know you're gonna judge me, but it just fits, all right? If I'm gonna be mean, I'm already being mean with Fynn, I'm gonna go, it's a bracket 4 deck, okay? This ultimately can allow me to play Blightsteel Colossus for a green mana, and it'll come in with 2 +1/+1 counters on top of it, coming in as what? It's a 10/10, 11/11. So Blightsteel's an 11/11, and it would come in as a 13/13 with Ovia. So, you know, cool, just fun stuff. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be Blightsteel. It literally says you can put any creature vehicle from your hand. So if you have any creature in your hand that you just need to get out, you pay 1, you can get it out. Great value. The next creature I'll talk about is Bloodroot Apothecary. Toxic 2. When it enters, target opponents create a treasure token. And whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-creature token, that player gets 2 poison counters. So basically locks people up if they're sacking treasures or sacking artifacts or doing anything of the sort where they need to basically be getting rid of tokens for mana or for, you know, card draw or whatever. This basically forces them to stop unless they are willing to take poison counters. Again, good value. Contaminated Grafter, 5 mana, 5/5, trample, toxic 1. Whenever one or more creatures deal combat damage to one or more players, proliferate. Again, feeding directly into the poison counters. And it says at the beginning of my end step, if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, draw a card, and then I may put a land card from my hand onto the battlefield. Good value, feeding into the poison counters. Most of you guys probably know this card. 1 mana, Venerated Rot Priest. Creature, it's 1/2, toxic 1, and it says whenever a creature you control becomes a target of a spell or target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter. Nylea, God of the Hunt, is a cool creature. I actually haven't had the ability to goldfish with her yet, so she's going to be kind of like a Heliod, in my opinion, the Heliod that you use in like Soul Sisters. She's an indestructible. As long as your devotion to green is, what is it, less than 5, she isn't a creature, but then she gives everything trample. So this is just a trample enabler, but it's also for 4 mana. If you wanted to, you could give something a +2/+2 turn of turn, but she's basically a body. Right, she's a 6/6 indestructible. If you have the devotion to green, which you're in a mono green deck, so a lot of the times you will, that gives everything trample. A little bit of expensive way to get trample, but it's just a creature on the board that, again, if I have something like the Orin Frostfang out, if I were to attack with her, Orin Frostfang gives her Death Touch, which then would trigger Fynn. We have Eternal Witness. There's just some recursion here. She's a 3 mana 2/1 creature. When Eternal Witness enters the battlefield, I may return target card from the graveyard to my hand. Always good in case they take something out that I need, like this Wormcoil Engine. This one you guys probably all know, 6 mana artifact creature. This is the other one that would work with Ovia. It is an artifact, so it would come in with 2 +1/+1. So if I use Ovia to bring this out, it would actually come in as a, what is it, an 8/8. If you guys don't know what Wormcoil Engine does, it's a Death Touch, a 6/6 Death Touch lifelinker, and it says when it dies, create a 3/3 colorless worm artifact creature token with Death Touch and a 3/3 colorless worm artifact creature token with lifelink. And the last creature of note in this deck, but might be one of the mightier of the group, is Toski, Bearer of Secrets. This guy is a 4 mana 1/1, and I know I'm gonna stop you right there. I know you're probably like, dude, what the hell? Just listen. He can't be countered. He's indestructible. He attacks each turn of Fable, which directly feeds into Fynn, because Fynn wants things to be attacking with and doing combat damage. But this says whenever a creature I control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So he's always going to be attacking, which is fine. If I can give him Death Touch, perfect. But if I don't give him Death Touch, he can still draw me some cards, which ultimately is never a bad thing. Some lands of note. Not many, but there are some lands of note in this deck. Rogue's Passage, obviously a good one, allowing you to make something unblockable. Always good. Shifting Woodland. It's just green mana if you want it to be green mana, or you could use it for its Delirium, which is 2 colors, 2 green, and basically you can make it a copy of any target permanent card in my graveyard. Yeah, until end of turn. So it just becomes a copy of something until end of turn. So it's just good value, but it also is like, you know, a Hail Mary. Nykthos, obviously that we're in a mono green deck, it's going to be important about Devotion. Nykthos is the card for that. If you guys don't know, Nykthos can tap, you pay 2 and you tap it, and it can give you the amount of green mana that you have devotion wise. And then something like Inkmoth Nexus. Just poison counter is not death touch, but it can tap for colorless, or you can pay, 1, and it turns into a 1/1 flyer that can infect.
Value.
Next, we'll go to the instants. Worldly Tutor, obviously a must include in a lot of the green decks if you want to make sure you get a creature, or if there's an important creature for you to get. Worldly Tutor is a good card for you. Infectious Bite, a card that's good for poison counters because it states it's 2 mana instant. It says target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Each opponent gets a poison counter. So you can never have too many poison counters in a deck that wants to win based off of poison counters. And then obviously Heroic Intervention, 2 mana instant. If you don't know what it does, permanents I control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. It's like a worse Teferi's Protection. Next category, we're going to be talking about sorceries. Not many in this category, but they are all bangers. Each one of these cards will win you a game. Green Sun Zenith. This is a sorcery that says you can search your library for a green creature card with a mana value X or less. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. And then you can shuffle Green Sun Zenith into your library, by the way. Busted. For X and a green, you can basically play any X cost that you would like, and it makes you have basically another tutor, a sorcery speed tutor. Again, not great being sorcery speed, but if you plan around it, and it's not like it's not gonna be like a emergency parachute, but it will, like, if you play smart, this could prep you for a win or prep you to defend against like a full swing. So very good card. Triumph of the Hordes, you guys might know this. I feel like it's a pretty well-known card for good and bad reasons. It is a 4 mana sorcery that says until the end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample and infect. So basically this is like one of the Hail Mary cards, right? So if you go to full swing, then you give everything that you're swinging with a +1/+1 trample and infect. I mean, a lot of the times this will win you a game if you're in a 1v1 situation in Commander, or if you just have enough of a board state, this would just win you the game against everybody. So great card. Pretty mean if you got a right board state for it, but great card. And then one of my favorite cards that I feel like not a lot of people talk about in green specifically, but Natural Order. This is a 4 mana sorcery. It says as an additional cast to cost this spell. Yeah, I said that. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a green creature. Search your library for a green creature card, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle. So basically, I can have a 1/1 Death Toucher out. I could have Natural Order. I could sack the 1/1 Death Toucher and go and get, let's see, from our list over here. Obviously, one of them being an exception, being this card. But I could go get one of these two, perhaps, if I really wanted to, being that they're green. Can't get this one because it's not green. That's the main reason. But the big hitters, the game enders, the full send, win the game per chance cards. Tyrannix Rex, expensive, big boy. It is a 7 mana 8/8. It's a Phyrexian dinosaur. It can't be countered. It has trample, toxic 4, ward 4, and haste. Great card, very aggressive. Again, you can cheat it out with Ovia. You could cheat it out with Natural Order. There's a lot of ways to get some of these cards out quick. And I will say, I'm kind of skipping here, but this card plays a big factor in a lot of these potentials to win the game or do big, huge swings. Blade of Selves. So I am kind of skipping. We are talking about these cards, but Blade of Selves is another super important card, being that this is basically something that can win you the game with Blightsteel Colossus alone. If you have this on Blightsteel Colossus, you win, if they don't stop you. Because basically this allows you to attack one person, and then it makes a copy of it doing to everybody else. So if you don't know, I'll read Blade of Selves so it's obvious. Blade of Selves is a 2 mana equipment, and it says equipped creature has Myriad. And Myriad's text explains whenever it attacks for each opponent other than defending player, you may create a token that's a copy of that creature that's tapped and attacking that player or a planeswalker they control. Exile the tokens at the end of combat. So basically, if I have Blade of Selves attached to Blightsteel Colossus and I send Blightsteel Colossus at one of the people, what winds up happening is the other two people at the table will also get an 11/11 Blightsteel Colossus token coming at them as well. So they would also have to block it, or else they would die. So this can really change the dynamic of a game very quickly if you're able to get that. But I kind of skipped ahead. But Tyrannix Rex, great card. Same thing can be done with Tyrannix Rex, with Craterhoof, or that. But the next card, obviously, everybody knows this one, Craterhoof Behemoth. When in doubt, it's green, you have a Craterhoof, you can always pull it off. It's a very expensive card, again, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 mana, so it's slightly more expensive than a Tyrannix Rex. It's less power and toughness, but it has haste. And then it also says that when this creature enters, creatures you control gain trample, get +X/+X the end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Where I'm in a creature heavy deck, a lot of the times I'm going to have creatures, so you can never go wrong. And then the very synonymously evil and hated Blightsteel Colossus, for everybody that plays against it, but everybody that plays with it loves it. It is a 12 mana cost, 11/11 artifact creature. It has trample, infect, and indestructible. And then it says, if Blightsteel Colossus would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal Blightsteel Colossus and then shuffle it into the owner's library instead. So unless you exile this thing, it's going to keep recurring itself, and it will be searchable or tutorable every single time. If you can reoccur the tutors for it. If you've already used them. So it's a very scary card. And if you don't know, I should have probably clarified this, but with Infect, you don't, it's not like regular health, or it's 10, I think. But poison counters will kill you way faster than anything else in this game. But it's also typically somewhat difficult, but Fynn allows you to be pretty locked in and honed in and focused. So some important enchantments in this deck: Bow of Nylea, Primal Rage, Garruk's Uprising. A lot of you guys will know Garruk's Uprising. If you don't, it's a 3 mana enchantment that says when this enchantment enters, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Creatures you control have trample. Whenever a creature you control with power 4 or greater enters, draw a card. Basically a trample enabler, but also can draw you cards if you have some beefers out on the board. Primal Rage, just a 2 mana enchantment that says all creatures you control gain trample. This card is incredible. It is very simple, very straight and to the point. It's an enchantment, so sometimes fairly difficult to kill on the board if your opponents don't have enchantment removal, because sometimes enchantments can be harder to target. So great card to give everything trample, and it's cheap. And then the other one is 3 mana Bow of Nylea. Nylea. It is a legendary enchantment artifact. So it could have been an artifact too, but I put it with the enchantments. And it says attacking creatures you control have death touch. Love that. Makes everything good. It's basically like the Orin's Fang. So you can basically recur any 4 cards from your graveyard. You can gain 3 life. You could deal 2 damage to something with flying, or you could put a +1/+1 counter on target creature card. So value. Love it. And then last but not least, before your heads explode from me talking your head off, artifacts. We already talked about Blade of Selves, Myriad, disgusting card, strong with any, Blade of Selves is just a strong card. It would take a lot for Blade of Selves to not be a dangerous card on a board state. And then the other one being Trailblazer's Boots. It's a 2 mana, equip 2. If you didn't know what it does, equipped creature has non-basic land walk. So most players in Commander will have some kind of non-basic land on the board, unless they're a mono colored deck with no utility lands. So a lot of the times Trailblazer Boots is basically a Rogue's Passage in equipment form. Allows you to not have to pay to tap it, but you pay to equip it to something that you want to have basically unblockable. And overall, that is the important parts of Fynn the Fangbearer, my Fynn the Fangbearer deck. I hope you enjoyed. I talked a lot. I'm going to try to chop this up as much as possible to not make it annoying, but that is what I have for you. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I will have to do this again with my other decks. Peace.